Well, what are we going to do today?
We're going to talk about what to do when there's repairs that need to be made, but no one has the money to make repairs.
Oh, no, I don't have the money to make repairs. What do I do?
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you exactly what to do.
Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to first buy a house.
Yeah. Get a good real estate agent, right?
Yes.
Find a house, and in the process, get a good lender.
Get a good
see
lender.
how much house you can qualify for.
Yes.
Because you want a house you love. You want a house payment that you love. You find the house, and sometimes the house payment that you love isn't the house that you love yet, and so we want these changes made, like maybe new carpet, new paint, some repairs, switch out the swamp cooler for HVAC, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah. And because you love maybe the location of the place, and the price is still in a good price. And there's a lot of good things about the house, but there's a lot of details that you cannot go or let pass. So there are like little things that we can do in order to make it so that works. And one of the things that we can do is allowances.
This is really cool because a lot of times the seller's selling the house, they need to get out of the house, they don't have money for stuff, but the carpet's really old or something needs to be remodeled and they don't have the money. You don't have the money because all the money's going to down payment and closing costs. So a really great way to do it is to get a contractor involved that is payable at closing. So there's a difference between an allowance and an escrow allowance. And the difference is when the money moves.
When the money moves. If you want a house, the house is in good shape, but it still has those green carpets from the 90s, and you just can't allow it. And the seller has money in his house, meaning he has the equity to make those changes, but he doesn't have the cash in his bank account to make those changes. So then that's one of the good things to make an allowance, right? This would be an allowance because it's money that it will be set up apart to pay that contractor that you guys hired to make those changes to the house, that it's going to be the seller that it's paying for, not the buyer. So sometimes when there's a necessity for the seller to move and they cannot do the remodels for the house to sell fast enough, then they can offer this allowances.
Yeah, so the contractor would come in, make the repairs, and then be paid with the proceeds from the sale of the house. So the equity's there, the sellers will get a little bit less, but they don't have to pay the contractor themselves because the title company would pay it at closing, which is the difference between an escrow allowance.
Yeah, so an escrow allowance, what would be an escrow allowance then if it's different?
Yeah, the crazy thing is escrow is a very little understood term. So like you put money in your checking account and that's money, I'm going to write checks for, I'm going to make future purchases with it. Or you have a savings account where like we're putting this money aside, we're just going to let it sit. An escrow says, hey, you've got to spend this money. Like your property taxes are coming up. Your homeowner's insurance is coming up. The repairs that need to be made on this home, that bill is coming up. And so it's held in place, but the account exists because there's an expense, right? So this would be allowed in lending if, let's say, the roof needs to be done, but there's a foot of snow on it. So they're like, hey, the lender won't lend on the house, the roof needs to be repaired. No one can repair the roof, there's a foot of snow on it, we need to close. Okay, we're going to do a weather-related repair allowance. Yeah. And so that money would go for the roofer. It would be held at title and paid to the roofer after closing, after the buyer moves into it, when the repair's done.
Yeah, and I've seen the case, and after a while, I've seen the case of somebody needed to paint a garage. It was a detached garage, and it needed to be painted, and it was snowing at the moment. So obviously that could not happen, in the next days or the next month. So they have to put some money out in an escrow account in order to pay that garage to be painted. And that happened during the summer, and the bank got the information and asked for it about it to figure out that the money was going in the right places. And then voila, the owner was able to move into the house way before the garage was painted. And but they were able to sell the house at the moment that it needed to be sold. So that's a good thing. Another thing that I've seen a lot is that a lot of persons ask me, okay, is my payment always going to be $2,000? And the answer is no. I'm sorry, but no. And the reason why not is because sometimes on that escrow allowance or that escrow account that they have, that's the money that it's coming for taxes and for home insurance. Even though your payment is the same, your insurance and your taxes are not the same every year. Yeah. And one of the ways that we can help you as realtors, that we can help you during those times in about October, before November, obviously, when you receive an account saying, hey, by the way, we're going to increase your taxes because your house is a lot more, it worths a lot more.
They send out a valuation and they say, this is your taxes, this is what we think your home's worth. But if you talk to Adeline, you're like, hey, is this accurate? She can do some market research and prove how much your home is worth, and it could reduce your tax bill.
Yeah. Or I can tell you, you know what, be good, don't say anything, they're doing you a favor. So one of the two, just, give us a call and figure out what we can do for you. And on escrow, I mean, that's one of the reasons why they do that, right? Like the separation of the funds.
Yeah, and it is sad almost every year I get a call from someone who says, hey, why did my mortgage payment go up? Like, what happened? I thought we had a fixed interest rate. And I said, well, you should have got an escrow account notice where the investor, the lender, whoever's servicing the loan says, well, your homeowner's insurance went up a few $100s, your taxes went up a few $100s, so your payment's going to go up a few dollars to cover it.
Yeah. Next few months, I think that we're going to see a lot of those things happen. We saw that happen also for some clients here when they say they couldn't even buy the house yet, when they were telling them that the roof needed to be changed and it needed to be fixed because of the insurance was going to be really high if they didn't.
That was an interesting one.
Yeah.
Usually it's the appraiser that says you've got a problem. But this one was the homeowner's insurance.
Yeah. And so, and that happens as well, right? The appraisal, when they have different types of loans that require certain things, that they're going to tell them, okay, we need to fix this and this and this. What happens? Where the money goes, how that gets paid.
Right. So a lot of times when we get the repair, when we get the appraisal, and they say, hey, there's repairs that need to be made before this home is lendable, that's when we go back. Adeline, your agent goes back and says, sellers, these are the repairs that need to be made. And then, like, if they have the money or not, that depends on when they're made or how they're made. But yeah, appraisal required repairs have to be completed before settlement, or they need to be escrowed.
Yeah. And that's what happened on that case that I was telling you guys before on the garage. It was part of an FHA appraisal, and FHA usually asks for no scraping paint and things like that. And the garage was in not such a good shape, so they asked them to paint it. And that was the answer. The answer is, we're going to put some money set apart and we're going to make it so they can still close. And the loan went through, everything was fine. They just have to get it after. That's why it's really important to get a hold of an agent, or either a real estate agent, a realtor that helps you and let you know what are the next things to do. And I think it's also really important to have a lender that will be able to let you know if you can do something or not. There's so many times that I've asked Jason, hey, we have this situation, is that possible? And he's like, yes, if, or no. That's because he knows about it. There's some other agents that I've seen that they have the basic information like we do, like everybody else does, and sometimes we need to dig a little more. You've seen those cases, I bet.
Yeah. And then in the process, it's really important to work with a real estate agent that when you're looking at houses can spot things that may need to be taken care of and know how to structure it. Because having the contract written right can be the difference between the offer being accepted or not, or the negotiations going through so you can get the house.
Yeah, I've seen things like, we're walking through the house, the person likes the house, and then suddenly there's like a weird beige color on the bathroom, and everything else looks fine. And I noticed that, and it's just like, oh, you guys, we need to figure out if there is a leak, or there was a leak, or what happened. And sometimes that changes to, oh yeah, well, there was a leak, but we fixed it, we just didn't do the cosmetic. But then there is really not, there's a problem in the roof, and then that's when the appraisal comes over and say, oh no, we need to change the roof, and then we have a problem. So we need to figure out exactly what it is. That's something really important, to be observant of the things that are going around the house and how people sometimes get used to them and don't see them as problems, which it happens all the time when you live there, you know? And but anyway, so what are the other things that we need to do to get into a house? One really important one is the earnest money, and that will be what we talk next time.